それが僕たちの Hard Rock Days 平凡な毎日じゃ乾きやせないいつだって逃げないで風当たり強く生きてゆこうゴールまだ遠く進むべき Hard Rock
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to our look at 1,000 now plus chapters of One Piece. As always, I am Sean, Bearded Capolitan.
I'm Jerry Robo Tengu Smith.
And with us, as always for these One Piece episodes, it is the Mike Del Vecchio.
How's it going, guys?
Oh, it is going. Man, we are on, day 36 of staying in this cabin, and Sean making us podcast about One Piece. I haven't even seen the outside world or what the sun looks like, so it's real scary, y'all.
Look, you've missed nothing, because all that matters is One Piece. As we are now hitting... Little, was this number 5?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, it's 4.25, right?
It's all one long video. But we thank y'all for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoyed us going on and on these videos. And without much further ado, because we got a lot to cover, let's go ahead and get right into it.
Oh, okay. So where we last left off, the Straw Hat Heart Pirate Alliance was leaving Punk Hazard. They had actually kidnapped Caesar the Clown via Law pulling out his heart. They had contacted the one and only Don Quixote do Flamingo, and had basically, you could tell Law has something against this dude, but Law had pretty much made a deal with them, like, hey, I'll give you Caesar back, because Caesar is his whole thing with his whole operation of creating weapons and everything for the New World and these smile fruits. But he basically told him, if you step down as a warlord of the sea, then we'll give you Caesar back. So they kind of all make these plans of we'll have one team on this little island called Greenbit that's going to meet up with Doflamingo to handle the exchange. But the real plan here is to get some of the Straw Hats to destroy the Smile factories that are creating these artificial devil fruits, while you also have a team that stays on the ship to guard the ship. And that's kind of the setup that we get here. We also, Doflamingo mentions to Luffy, hey, I have something that I think you'd be really interested in that you want. And we get a scene where he actually entrusts one of his, because he has his top guys, which, it being the with the Doflamingo pirates, and he's Joker.
Right.
We find out that a lot of his stuff are suits of cards, which is interesting because Law's pirates are called the Heart Pirates, so we kind of get that further connection between the two of them.
Right.
We get it revealed that the thing that Doflamingo has that Luffy might want is the Marimara no Mi, which was Ace's fruit. So we know from the whole Whitebeard experience that Blackbeard had taken Whitebeard's devil fruit. So somehow, during all the chaos and confusion, Doflamingo got his hands on Ace's fruit.
Yeah, because that's I don't think I don't recall them ever actually saying how they tracked it down, but I'm not sure if we ever covered what happens when a devil fruit user does pass, unless you're interfering like Blackbeard did. That if I remember correctly, just a random fruit somewhere nearby will become a devil fruit.
So we covered it a little bit when we were talking about Punk Hazard because of Smiley and the Axetol dying, and then an apple turning into a devil fruit. So it's a bit like that. So Doflamingo could have been I'm gonna gained more power and just had a bunch of fucking fruit in his pocket. It was like, as soon as a devil fruit user dies, I'm gonna get their power or something like that. It could have been something as simple as that, which would have been pretty interesting. Which honestly, if you think about it now, it's like, oh, anytime there's some giant war, I'm just gonna bring a bunch of fruit on me and fucking collect.
He probably did that during the Marineford arc. Now you think about it, he probably knew that something like that was going to happen.
Oh yeah, with all those big powers like going around, definitely. They drop some of the crew off at Greenbit to handle the exchange. We get the rest of them are going to the mainland to destroy these smile factories, but they have to go disguised. And as we discussed before, Kinemon, the samurai that they picked up on Punk Hazard, the one that was all like in pieces that they had to put together, he has the ability to make things out of like other things, like transmute them basically. So he gives them all disguises, and we get into this whole thing where they're all just walking around on this island, and they're walking toys everywhere, which is really fascinating. I mean, like, we've seen weird shit, but they're like sentient toys. And this whole island is just really interesting. It's got a very like kind of Spanish esque vibe going on.
Yeah, the architecture in it, and it's very reminiscent of like Barcelona and Sevilla and all that, which is it was so cool because like every island has like its own theme, and just to see that cool architecture and then sentient toys walking around, this really set up to be like one of the coolest arcs that we've seen to date. Definitely one of the weirdest.
Yeah, right. It's a very very unique setting for what we've seen so far. Everything's been kind of that I guess Age of Pirates and like historical, like most of the towns are very kind of like, basic with a few exceptions. And then all of a sudden, we get one that's like distinctly like cultural, something in the real world. I thought that was very cool.
Yeah. No, it was pretty great. And it was actually, there was actually a thing because, who the fuck is actually able to find out all this information or whatever, because the Heart Pirate and Straw Hat Alliance actually came out, as a big news article. And along with that, we actually got a news article about another alliance from the Worst Generation. And that was with Scratchman and Pooh, Hawkins, and Eustace Kid were forming an alliance as well.
Yeah.
And they also kind of pan over after you see Luffy and Law that Doflamingo was in contact with Akainu, and he basically tells him, he's going to send another Admiral Fujitora over to kind of squash this alliance because they don't want these superpowers ganging up and like just becoming an unstoppable force. So we get on this island with all of these wacky toys and all these citizens and everything. I think one of the first places we visit, also like their outfits are really wild, right? Like Frankie's got these like long braid things going on and this like bowler hat and everything. Everybody gets some very like kind of fancy like suits and like facial hair and sunglasses and stuff to disguise them.
All the dudes get the Rock killer mustaches. For disguise.
Yep.
One of the first places that we go to is this little gambling house where we run into a blind man seemingly being swindled by these like ruffians at a game that they're playing, and they're basically lying to him about what's going on in the game. So they're winning and cashing out and just taking advantage of his handicap here.
Right.
When Luffy basically points out, that they're lying to him, he creates a crater out of them, and it just a huge hole in the floor, right?
Right.
So, he kind of leaves on this interesting note of like, some kind of respect for this person that had helped him out and told him the truth and everything. Well, we later find out that this is Sean's new favorite character, and the admiral that was sent here to squash the alliance, none other than Fujitora.
Yeah, and for those who have seen him, if you're familiar at all with like older Japanese cinema, Fujitora is a complete tribute to the Zatoichi film franchise and character of the blind, wandering, gambling, just blind swordsman. And even
So
this,
cool.
oh, absolutely, and he's even modeled after the actor himself. Like he looks
Yeah.
just like him. And what's even cool is, yeah, them taking advantage of the fact that he's blind was a common setup throughout the Zatoichi films until they realized who they were. He's like, oh, this is a blind man who wants to gamble. But then, although Zatoichi never dropped him in a crater or created a crater to wreck him, just use his sick sword skills.
What I love, what I love about him is that he continues the trend that Oda set up with like all the admirals are based off of famous Japanese actors, and all their admiral names are all a color and an animal.
Right.
So like so you got Aka Inu is red dog. You got Aokiji is blue pheasant. Kizaru is yellow monkey, and now Fujitora is Wisteria tiger. So like they're all like, he has the cool outfit with all the purple and all that.
Right.
And then I don't know I forget if they mention it now, but we have one that's like unseen so far. That's Green Bull. So like we don't know who he is but we can kind of guess that when we see him eventually that he'll be modeled after some famous Japanese actor and all that.
Yeah. There's actually the touch on a potential fan theory, because again, he is still, even though he's appeared, but like in full silhouette, and that's a little bit down the line, he's shadowed out. But there was an old sketch that Oda had put up a long time ago. I think he maybe published back in the letter section or whatever of the original publication, of Toshihiro Mifune from Seven Samurai, Yojimbo.
Oh, yeah.
He drew him with bull horns, and all he said was, "I wonder what Mifune would look like with bull horns." So a lot of speculation about Green Bull being Toshihiro Mifune.
And then that'd be great because he's one of the more recognizable Japanese actors outside of Japan.
Absolutely. So excited when we finally get to see him. Especially if it's true.
It's definitely going to be incredible, and I'm so excited for it. Following the whole, I almost said auction house. I'm just going to take us back a little bit.
We can't go back.
The gambling house.
Forward.
Right. Following the gambling house, our fellows that stepped out on the street, and I think at this point it's Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, Kinemon, and I think that's the few that are on here. They step out onto the street and they see this big announcement about a tournament that's going on, which already Luffy's like, oh, this is interesting. Turns out the prize for the winner of this huge gladiatorial Coliseum match is the Mare no Mi, Ace's flame fruit. So already Luffy's like, motherfucker, and he's just like, no, I can't let anybody get this. This is not going to happen. So he decides to join in on this, and goes through and almost gives them his actual name, but he's like, they remind him, you're incognito, so he goes by the name of Lucy because he already lets out a Lu, and then he just says C. So we now have the gladiator fighter Lucy that's entering the fray.
Yeah, and I love. Yeah, I don't know if Sean, if you're gonna go this way, but the fact that his setup or his disguise has the big beard and the glasses and all that he is basically playing off of Dragon Ball with
Master Roshi
hiding in plain sight.
I was absolutely about to go there because in Goku's first big tournament, Roshi put on a hairpiece and disguise himself as well. But just Luffy with the long beard, the Hawaiian shirt, yeah, it's a pretty maybe low key. I don't know. To me, it was like that looks like a Roshi tribute because Oda, he did work under Akira Toriyama. He was one of his assistants before he made One Piece. So I think that was a little nod to his former senpai.
Yes,
definitely.
So we get into this whole Colosseum scene, and we see that it's a lot like kind of the how the Roman gladiators did. There's a lot of like slaves and stuff that are like forced to fight in these like rough conditions and everything. You also get introduced to a lot of people from that are big prominent people from around the world. You've got like Don Chinzhou, who is a big sort of like fleet admiral, and then he's got people under him that are there. We get introduced to all kinds of characters. One of the ones that I kind of liked off the bat was a character named Bartolomeo. I mean, his look was just really interesting. He had this really long coat with feathers and a mohawk. I've actually cosplayed him. It was hella fun. But he's just kind of seemed like this sort of like angry dude, just kind of brooding. We also run into a character named Cavendish who harbors like a hate for the worst generation because he was an up and coming pirate, and it seemed like his fame was just kind of blown over by everything that the worst generation was doing. So he really hated that. And then we also get introduced to a female gladiator named Rebecca, who is trying her hardest to win, and most of these people seem to harbor some kind of disdain for Doflamingo or the Doflamingo family. And then you also get an older gentleman that's a gladiator, who is going by the name, I think it was Ricky.
Ricky, yeah.
Yeah. And the way that these fights are laid out, because with all these characters that they introduced, I was kind of worried at first that we were going to have this humongous tournament, but no. Essentially, they have blocks A through D. They all fight each other in a big battle royale, and then the winner of that fights the other 3 blocks, and they all compete against each other to get the devil fruit.
Right.
Yep, and we also forget the two previous characters are in this tournament. We in A block we got the Jesus Burgess, who's who's Blackbeard's right hand man, and then also Bellamy comes back after all this time.
Yeah.
Last time we saw him, he had a big fist print in on the side of his face.
Right.
Got one shot by Luffy.
Oh.
Yeah, no. Well, and if I remember correctly, he now has a big scar on his face because of that.
Right.
Yeah. And it's kind of like a newfound respect. Like, he doesn't go off the bat like mocking Luffy or anything like that. So we get kind of the rundown of all these characters. We get the matches, and it ends up being Rebecca and Cavendish get pit off against all their people. Rebecca's not like the greatest fighter, but you find out that Cavendish has like an alternate personality whenever he falls asleep that just murders everything. And somehow Rebecca was able to deflect, and then of course Cavendish fell asleep right after. So since she was the last one standing, she won hers. Jesus Burgess won his, and then one of my more favorite ones is we had this fight that Bartolomeo was in, and all these fighters, and you had this kingly character named Elisabello II, whose punch has been heard to be able to take down an emperor or something like that.
Right.
And while all these people are fighting, he does his punch, and the only one left standing is Bartolomeo, and you find out that his whole thing is force fields. And like there was even a scene where everybody was fighting, and he was taking it lightly and peeing off the edge of the arena and stuff like that. And he it takes a while for Elisabello's like punch to recharge, and Bartolomeo just does like this barrier crash. You find out that he's a barrier man, and he can create like little force fields around himself and stuff, which is really intriguing, right? Because usually you're like, oh, force fields are mostly like defensive and stuff, but no, he crashes this fucking force field wall into Elizabello and basically takes the match. And then you get Luffy's fight, and one of the big people that's in his fight is the one that I mentioned before, Don Chinjiao, who actually, interestingly enough, he's got this this cone head that's bent to the side, and you find out that he used to be renowned for his like really strong head and breaking icebergs until fucking Garp bent his head sideways. and within their fight and like all these other competitors getting taken out, Luffy and him get into it, and Luffy ends up sending his head straight while he knocks him out, and Don Chinjiao has a new respect for him, being because he finds out that he's the grandson of Garp. So Luffy Lucy ends up stealing the match. So we have our top 4 competitors. We have Lucy, we have Jesus Burgess, we have Rebecca, and then we also have Bartolomeo that made it into the finals. Don't we
also have the guy from the Doflamingo Pirates, the guy who basically no matter what was always going to be in the finals?
Yeah. So he's their champion essentially, and Diamante was his name.
That's right.
Yeah, because his generals are all things of cards. So Diamante is diamond. Then you have Pika, that is the spade, and then Treble, that is the clove, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're all like versions of that. So they were essentially, you're going to have these 4 in the ring versus Diamante to see who gets the Mera Mera no Mi. But in all this that's happening, another character shows up in this. It is none other than the long lost, thought to be dead, third brother of the trio, Sabo.
Yeah.
We find out that he survived the bombing of the Celestial Dragons whenever he was a child.
Which that was just a huge reveal when that happened. We were just like, because like I think they hinted at him a couple episodes. It was kind of shadowed out, and then when you just finally you see the top hat, you see the pipe.
Yeah.
You're like, holy shit, Sabo's alive.
Right. So he basically takes the mantle of Lucy. We then find out that word's getting around this arena that Lucy is really Luffy. And you kind of get like other people's like opinions of this. And then you find out that somebody like starts talking shit about it, and Bartolomeo shows up behind him and basically slices off their tongue. Which is like just this real brutal thing, but you find out that he's this huge fucking Straw Hat fan. Right. Like he was apparently at Logtown whenever Luffy proclaimed himself King of the Pirates. You get a little bit of past information where he's like fanboying over their wanted posters and kind of following what they're doing. And it was the whole thing that he set out to see to become a pirate because of his people that he idolizes, the Straw Hats. So in the meantime, while all this Coliseum stuff is going on, you have Law, Usopp, and was it Robin, and I believe Chopper, that are all on Greenbit during this exchange. Or no, Chopper I believe was on the ship. So they have Caesar. Law has his heart. He tells the Straw Hats to kind of like hide, and Doflamingo comes in, and of course, Doflamingo's like, I'm who I am. I'm not gonna like give up my seat, and you're going down. Right. So him and Law essentially get into it. Law ends up. So Doflamingo doesn't have all the cards. He ends up porting Caesar Clown onto the Thousand Sunny, and while he's trying to fight and deal with Doflamingo, because this was I don't know why this was an unexpected thing of him like getting attacked, but essentially like he's just trying to survive a fight against Doflamingo. Sanji actually steps in at one point, and him and Doflamingo kind of like hit legs, and you see kind of Sanji's leg kind of like crack a little bit, and to get him out of there, Trafalgar basically like sends him back to the ship, Doflamingo pretty much captures Law. We find out about this other race that the rest of the crew run into with Usopp and Robin, and there are these little things called the Tontatas, like little tiny people that were also planning a revolt against the Doflamingo family. And Usopp, with his expert lying abilities, ends up tricking them into thinking that he's like this great warrior pirate, and they decide to follow him. And one of the main things that they're wanting to go against the Doflamingo family is because a lot of their Tontatas and even their princess has been enslaved and forced to work and create the smile fruits, right?
Right.
Yeah.
What actually, what I love about the fact that at how Usopp tricked them, or kind of got them on side, was that he pretended to be the descendant of Nolan back from the Jaya arc. So not only do we get Bellamy from that, but now we get a tie to like the whole Skypiea thing, because he was like a descendant of his, or ancestor of his, was like the hero of the Tontatas years ago.
Right.
Because I think it had something to do with the outfit he was wearing, like his hat kind of looked like the
yes,
the hair or whatever that all the Nolans had, which was like basically a chestnut on their head or something like that.
Yeah, their little weird chestnut hair thing. Yeah, so that was an interesting thing for them to set up with his new outfit and everything. We then also get introduced to a character that's a toy soldier that's like missing a leg. And, steadily throughout everyone's encounters, we kind of get introduced to these other people that are on Doflamingo's crew. One of which, her name is Viola, and there was kind of like an interesting like thing with Viola and Sanji, just kind of like she was gonna kill him, and then you later find out that she was a princess to the formal royalty that was in there. Then you also find out that Ricky, the person that was secretly fighting, was the old King Riku, who used to be the monarch of this island. And one of the interesting things about him is, he had his kingdom and everything was really great. It was happier times. Doflamingo shows up, and they basically do a lot of subterfuge, and Doflamingo controls him to essentially, he gets everybody to enter the town square, and Doflamingo controls him to just start attacking people. So he's been known and he's been brought up as like the Mad King, but now we know that his family was betrayed, and that's how all of the Doflamingo crew took over this island and became the new rulers of it. So you also find out that Rebecca was the granddaughter of King Riku, so she's a princess in the family as well. And then later on, you find out that the toy soldier and Rebecca have a connection in where the toy soldier kind of protected her whenever she was first growing up. But we kind of get this whole thing where they're going to split into groups. I believe Frankie at this time had met back up with them, and they were going to have a team go after Law. They were going to have a team go after the Smile Factory and create a huge distraction. And with everything going on in the arena, Doflamingo and everybody thinks that Luffy is still Lucy because that it was a terrible cover. He just didn't do a good job of fighting himself. So they don't realize that switch happened with him and Sabo. We also know at this point that one of the reasons Kinemon wanted to be on this island was because of they were previously at this island, got attacked, and they had another comrade with them that was lost in the confusion. And then Kinemon and Momonosuke made it away where this other person didn't. So that was his big motivation for staying on the island. We get the other Straw Hats that are on the Thousand Sunny. They get attacked by one of the I can't remember if it was one, maybe it was just one of the people, Giola, who has she's in Doflamingo's crew, and she has an artistic power, kind of like that little girl that was on Little Big Garden.
Right.
Miss Golden Week.
Yes, but Giola's ability is she can turn anything into like some kind of modern art. So whenever we see Chopper, Brook, and Nami and Momonosuke on the ship, the whole ship is warped and they're all like changed. Brook ends up being the one to dispatch Giola. They essentially Luffy commands the crew and everybody to take the ship out and go to their next location to Zou, which they've mentioned needing to go there. At that point, they run into the Big Mom Pirates fleet, and Sanji asks for permission to return fire after they had been fired on. And let's just say the Big Mom Pirates fleet looks fucking ridiculous and amazing.
A little bit.
Because they're like the sweet pirates or sweet pirates or whatever. So their ships look like, they've got all these candy canes and candy and shit coming off of them, and I think the ship even speaks too, like it has a head mask.
It does.
It's just bananas. So Luffy of course gives the since they technically already started this conflict with the Big Man Pirates and the war or the Emperors of the Sea. Luffy gives them the go-ahead to, retaliate against the Big Man Pirates, and just fight back. And I think that's really the last that we see of them in this little arc. Yeah, right.
Not too much focus on them, I think, from here out, because again, splitting the party was already so much going on. Like this was a dense arc, and we're doing our damnedest to cover. Jerry, you're doing a great job.
Thanks.
Because it's a lot to cover, and we don't want to spend all of 2 hours on here. But there's so much going on. I'm sorry,
there really is.
So we then find out. So yes, you have part of the crew like Luffy that's going to save Trafalgar. You have part of the crew that's going after the Smile Factory, and then you have another part of the crew that's going to save the Queen of the Tontatas. And you've got your Tontatas, Leo, who is like the best. Doesn't he have like a stitch fruit or something like that? Where he can like stitch things together. I think that was him. Yeah, it was a really interesting thing, and I love that they introduced this race into this one.
Oh yeah, the little like almost fairy like Tontatas were. It's kind of like out of nowhere, but also like super great because they each had, like I said, kind of unique characteristics. Leo being very much like kind of like, if I remember right, he was like kind of like that knight who wants to like save the princess, and he had that stitching power, and it was cool. Yeah. Them worshiping Usopp just was icing on the cake.
Perfect.
So we then find out, along with like going to save the Tontatas, that the losing gladiators from the Coliseum bouts, we find out what happened to them is they get sent to this underground facility, and one of Doflamingo's crew members, a character by the name of Sugar, which is like this little girl. She's got like a little monocle and a little bear hood and cloak. You find out that she has this devil fruit ability where she can turn people into toys, and it basically erases their anyone's memories of them. This is like an insane ability, right?
Really. I mean, enough like that you can change someone's entire structural makeup, but to also erase from reality is like. I mean, it was impactful. You just
complete their entire existence, right?
It was like super impactful and important to the story.
So at that point, we find out, of course, like the majority of the resonance above, there are all these toys that nobody remembers. And then it shoots to the toy soldier. who we actually find out was this ruffian back in the day, and he ends up fighting against King Riku. They end up capturing him, and they tell him, he just wants to fight, or mostly I think he just wants like a death or whatever or something. He thinks that he's garbage pretty much. So King Riku has him fight in the arena, and I think he gives him that whole stipulation, of like, if you win so many matches or whatever, you'll gain your freedom. And essentially what ends up happening is, he kind of comes around, and once he wins all these matches, King Riku assigns him as like the captain of the guard or whatever. And you find out, Riku has these two daughters, Viola and Scarlet. Well, he falls in love with Scarlet, and when the whole Doflamingo mess happens, they run away, and they had already had the daughter Rebecca at this point. His name is Kyros. I don't think I mentioned that. You find out the toy soldier's real name is Kyros. So essentially, Kyros is whisking his wife and daughter out of the city as the Doflamingo pirates are taking over the whole city. And at some point, he goes back to face them, and that's whenever he gets turned into a toy, which then makes his family forget about him. And Rebecca's mom, Scarlet, ends up trying to go and get them food, and she ends up getting killed by Diamante. So that's really Rebecca's one big motivation for going through the arenas, because she wants to get vengeance for her mom against Diamante. But also, so you have this whole thing where after her mom dies, this toy soldier comes and basically raises her, and you find out that this whole time it was her dad that she had forgot about, because of this just devastating devil fruit, right?
Which that was huge.
Yeah. So you get the group that goes into this area where all these these people are being turned into toys and everything. You get this really long, drawn out fight, and they're like, at first they're like, oh, it's just a kid, we can just deal with this, and it's good. But then we find out that she's got a bodyguard in Treble, which was the one of the four seats, the highest people ranking in Doflamingo's crew.
Right.
And he ends up being some kind of like a gross sludge dude. I'm not actually 100% sure on what his actual ability or devil fruit power is.
I think they call it like sticky fruit or whatever. It's kind of. I mean, in the series, it looks almost like boogers, but it's more just like or like snot. But I guess they make it more like generic and just say sticky, because he's just like always oozing and dripping of stuff on him.
Yeah. He occupies the club seat. And he's just he's a Paramecia type that he controls mucus. Right. That's what it is. That's why it was so disgusting. So he's always got like a runny nose and stuff.
Just the absolute him and was it number Mr. 5, whatever, had the explosive boogers. The ultimate team right there.
Yeah. So he pops up in this area and basically is like wiping the floor with everybody. And the only person left is Usopp. And essentially they hatched this plan of Usopp was going to snipe this really hot, like extremely powerful candy or something into Sugar's mouth, because they notice she's eating these plums, and they're waiting on her to eat this one. And because if you knock a devil fruit user out, their power nulls, like we've figured out in the past with other devil fruit users, like their powers basically go away that affect other people. So Usopp essentially gets his ass handed to him, and he's like running away again. And then the Tontatas are all being captured by Treble, and they're just they look up to him, so they're asking him to save them and everything. And finally he kind of comes to and gets himself in gear, and he's like, never again, I'm gonna live up to be the hero that they want me to be. and he goes to face him and gets absolutely wrecked.
Yeah, he did.
And Sugar essentially like catches on, like, oh, you were trying to get me to eat this, huh? So she makes him eat it, and whenever he eats it, his reaction to it is his face is just basically contorted and like,
oh my god,
it's so like just nuts how like the way that his face goes that it scares her and she passes out from it. So they end up succeeding in their whole thing, and with that, all these toys, all these people that have been turned into toys, all of a sudden snap back, and people start having memories. They even had a character, a toy that they showed early on that was walking with a family, and you find out that like something happened with him. He got turned into his toy, and his family forgot about him, but he kept trying to stay, with his family. So he just basically kind of like, kept staying with them and helping them out, but they completely forgot who he was and everything.
Right.
So it was just this huge moment. And with that, and with all the gladiators being present whenever this happened, they all kind of like started looking up to the Straw Hat Pirates and was like, oh, these are the people, that basically saved us. We're supposed to be these renowned people, and like we couldn't even fight against this. So they all kind of join together and decide that they're going to help liberate this island. While that's happening, we have a mangled Trafalgar Law, and he's changed to the Heart Chair, which apparently you find out that he was there. He was expected to take that seat,
right?
And there was a person that was on that seat previously that we didn't really, we had never known about. So then they go into Law's backstory, which at this point, in this arc, I'm just like freaking out because,
of course, yeah,
this is like huge. A character that I've loved for a while, and I love it whenever Oda brings it back after so long, and we get backstories for characters that we hadn't seen in a while. You find out that he was the unfortunate heir of a really deadly petrifying disease, and so many people from his where he's from had died from this, including like both of his parents and his sister. And he essentially, I believe the story goes that he tried to join the Doflamingo family, or something to that.
I think so. I think he was trying to, since he had no family connection left, and I think he was getting kind of ostracized where he was from.
Mm-hmm.
So he wanted to join up with them.
Like people were essentially shunning him as like, oh, gross, he's got this disease, like don't get near him. And so he basically comes in and like threatens them with all these grenades strapped to him that he would blow himself up if they didn't let him join.
Which is the best way to make friends, really.
Which at this point we see a younger Doflamingo family, and we actually see what was his name? Vista, who kind of wailed on him before. But we also get introduced to Doflamingo's younger brother, Corazon, who also, has a penchant for wearing furs and is really tall. And he's kind of got like a little bit of clown makeup on, right?
Yeah.
But he doesn't talk, but he's like super clumsy and somehow always lighting himself on fire.
I forgot about that. Like trying to be smooth about it too, like lighting a cigarette or something. Like looking all cool as hell, to be honest, and then all of a sudden,
he's just like he's like that kind of badass that everyone's like, oh, he'll kill a motherfucker just for like no reason, and then like he's got this really funky, clumsy side. And I think Law gets into this point because he basically just like punts Law, like kicks him whenever he first sees him or something like that. So Law kind of goes on this tirade of wanting to kill Corazon.
Right.
And at some point, like he tells like his story about his family and everything, and you find out that Trafalgar's full name is Trafalgar D. Wattel Law. So he's got the will of the D in his name.
Yes, he does.
And that was so surprising that the seemingly mute Corazon speaks out and is like, listen to me, you can never tell anybody about your full name, especially not Doflamingo. Which we actually kind of get into a backstory with Doflamingo and Corazon, where they used to be celestial dragons, until their dad decided, like, no, we don't want like this power over people. We're just humans. We should live with normal people. And so they leave the place. I can never remember the name. Mary Jo is where the celestial dragons live. High above everyone else. And live, in the regular world. But at this point, the stigma with the celestial dragons is so bad that they basically get, ran out of towns and stuff like that. And they're just, really not looked up to or anything by the common people. So essentially their mom dies. I can't remember. I think she ends up like getting killed by a mob or just dying after their poor living conditions. And at that point, the father, who was the big optimist that brought him down there and, wanted them to live a normal life and everything, as he's holding Corazon, Doflamingo shoots him from behind and kills him, kills their own dad.
Yeah, 'cause he was never happy about like them leaving. He always was like complaining the whole time because basically, and Dofi been a piece of shit from birth.
And that's also why he was never really accepted by the Celestials, because of all the stuff that his father did. So with that being wrapped up, you find out that Corazon is actually an informant for the Marines. He's actually a part of the Marines. So he left the Doflamingo family and went out and ended up, joining the Marines and everything. And I can't remember off the top of my head. I think he was talking to was it Sengoku?
Yeah, I believe he was reporting to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was reporting directly to Sengoku, and he gets with, after all these trying to help Law cure this disease that he's surely going to die from. He essentially kidnaps Law against his will, and he's like, "We're gonna find you a cure," and he starts taking him from place to place, and they keep getting run out because Law has this really rare disease that nobody wants, and they're just cursing them and everything. And Corazon just keeps trying, and occasionally we'll get a scene with him lighting himself on fire, and they just kind of become these people that are sort of taking care of each other. And Corazon finally finds out the thing that will save him is this devil fruit called the Ope no Mi, which seemingly gives someone power over life and death. Is how he's describing it. And you find out that it's also a devil fruit that Doflamingo at this point in time has been searching for this whole time, because he wants the power of immortality, or someone in his crew to have the power of immortality. He essentially finds out about Corazon's betrayal and him being a Marine informant, because Corazon is getting the Marines to buckle down and go after their family. But, they have, who we find out is Vista in the Marines. We didn't know, they didn't know at that time, but we know now because of Punk Hazard.
Right.
That Vista was part of their family. So he was their informant and basically, told them about Corazon. And while they were on the run, Corazon takes the Ope no Mi, and against Trafalgar's will, just kind of shoves it in his mouth or whatever, and puts him in a crate. And at that point, the Doflamingo family catches up to him, and Doflamingo uses the same gun that he killed their father to kill Corazon, while Law's trapped in this crate. And it's just kind of this very somber moment. And now we know why this whole time Law had this whole this vengeance, and he wanted to go after Doflamingo for so long because of this person that, when the whole world was treating him he had the plague and he's just useless and gonna die anyway, this one person cared for him enough to risk their own life to save him. And that's kind of been like the whole reason Doflamingo's been trying to get him on his crew is because he's got this ability. So, you know, we don't know if he's like wants to try to force Trafalgar to be on his crew, or if he just wants to kill him and steal the Devil Fruit power. But that's the backstory that we get for it.
And what's other little detail too is, while you know Law is a very somber kid, you know, and Corazon being kind of like the clown and always telling him to smile. You know, he's always got like a big shit-eating grin on his face, trying to cheer up Law, and that's the big influence of Corazon was you know the creation of the Heart Pirates from his logo, which is pretty much him his smile. As well as the Heart Pirates, you know, Corazon is Spanish for like my heart or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. So got all that little connection in there. It was just that backstory. Like Law, I like Law. I think everyone likes Law, but you know, he's not. I wouldn't say my favorite character, but that is one of the best origins that we've seen in One Piece, in my opinion.
Yeah, it was very well done, and I mean, especially for a character that's not even one of the main characters. I mean, I guess at this point he's with the whole alliance and everything.
Look,
but
he takes orders from the Straw Hats. We know that now.
The series is essentially like a bundle of hey, let's make this plan, and Luffy being like, yeah, but I got a better idea.
And no one hates it more than Law.
Yeah. Sorry, I went to take a drink.
Right,
so anyway, we get this backstory. We've got all these people that are, you know, freshly revived from this happening. We get to this point where Kyros and Luffy are going to save Law. Kyros gets up there first and decapitates Doflamingo, and that's the end of the arc, seemingly. Until we find out that Doflamingo, we've kind of had this thing that he's got, you know, some kind of string ability. Find out that his body was actually a string puppet.
Right.
And so it's just another fucking thing that he can do with this ability, which just goes to prove that with the right imagination and training, you could do just amazing things with this type of ability.
Oh yeah.
He at that point, Luffy gets there and grabs Trafalgar, who's stuck in sea stone handcuffs. Them and Kyros go to make their escape before Doflamingo levels the whole place, and Doflamingo puts up this bird cage, this giant wire cage around the entire island, and he deems this bounty, right? He puts stars on everybody, and he's like, the Straw Hat Pirates are enemy number one here. You have this much time to capture them, and if you do, you'll be rewarded. But this bird cage is essentially going to slowly go into this island, destroying everything and everyone in its path. So they have a limited amount of time, and it pretty much kind of turns like a lot of those former gladiators and citizens to go after the crew members. But the funny thing about it was Law and Luffy got the second highest bounty at 3 stars, where the self-proclaimed god Usopp is the highest bounty one with 5 stars.
Yep.
Because he took out Sugar, which was like one of the bigger plots that Doflamingo had.
Yeah.
So whoever kills God Usopp, gets the highest prize. So you have a bunch of pirates that are trying to go after him, and you get at one point before that happened, I believe. So you get. I'm gonna have to go back a little bit because I just remember this wrapped up before that happened. But you go back to the whole tournament where everybody's fighting against each other and everything. I can't even remember what Diamante's power is, but I know he had like a sword that curved and stuff like that, right?
It was like a ripple fruit or whatever. So like he can they make things like almost like a flag, I guess, in a sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, right. It had some kind of like flag thing going on.
Yeah, I remember at one point during a fight of his that like he turns his sword into like a shield, or the shield, or like a shield is made of like stone, so it's like heavier than it looks, something like that. His cape is heavier than you would think it is.
Right, yeah. Because he could just take mundane objects and like basically turn them into that, and then like reverse the effects to turn them back into what they originally were. Or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so we have this whole fight, and before this fight started, we had this plan that hatched between Luffy and Sabo, and Rebecca and Bartolomeo, and essentially we get to this point where they're like, Sabo's gonna try to get this fruit because they make this thing that's like, Sabo. They make a pact that's like, of course, Sabo would be the good one to get it, and Luffy,
Right.
of course, has no objections to this. So he kind of tests Bartolomeo with like helping them out and everything. Meanwhile, Jesus Burgess is going out, and Diamante's like going after them because they're trying to not let these other people win. And what ends up happening is we get Sabo ends up getting the fruit, biting into it. Apparently, all it takes is one bite of the fruit, and you gain the ability. And he now has Ace's Marimar no Mi power, and it's kind of cool because yes, we did see people eat devil fruits whenever we had in his lobby. And we got to see them kind of like start it, but this is like literally like cause and reaction, right?
Yeah.
He immediately eats the fruit and starts trying to figure out how to control this ability, and it's a little unwieldy at first. So they essentially kind of duke it out after he gets this ability, but when it's said and done, the three that I mentioned before, Bartolomeo, Rebecca, and Sabo, all kind of like escape the arena, and then this birdcage happens. Upon Luffy like trying to rush to Doflamingo, they were stopped by Fujitora, who then Sabo defends Luffy against, which is pretty interesting. Just seeing like he can face off, but that's also when we find out from Fujitora that Sabo is a higher up in the Revolutionary Army,
Right.
which explains he actually has this attack called the Dragon Claw, and it's like, come on, Luffy's dad's name is Dragon.
Clearly,
so,
had to have been personally trained by Dragon.
Yeah. We also get another interesting character that they just kind of touch on, but I'm kind of going blank on her name right now, and she's not, I believe, on my character list. It was the girl that was with the Fishman Pirates. What was her name?
Koala.
So we also get another tidbit of a character that's working with Sabo, but she's in the underground, and it turns out to be Koala, the little girl that the Fishman or the Sun Pirate saved back in the day. And she, being a former slave, has grown to hate the government and everything, and wants to take down the establishment and everything too. So of course she joins the revolutionaries in that aspect. So you get this birdcage that goes up upon the announcement of what's going to happen, with the island and everything. Fujitora decides to change his allegiances and work with the people in stopping this from happening.
Yep.
You still get Sabo that's trying to uncover some secrets there. I think also something that I kind of glossed over was we find our first road poneglyph here as well, right? Or no, wait, is that Zoe?
I think so.
Okay. Never mind. Forget I ever said that.
Yeah. Is it at this point we actually see Fujitora's power by this point?
Yes, I think whenever the birdcage pops up, he does the thing with the fucking meteor.
Yeah, so he has I can't think of the fruit name. You don't have it in front of me, but he basically has a gravity fruit. He can, hence the crater early on, he just basically made gravity pressure to slam the gamblers down. But we see him be able to use it to the extent of literally grabbing meteors from space and just bringing them to Earth. He is, because of course he's an admiral. He's super fucking strong as hell.
Mm-hmm.
On top of being
the Zushi no Mi.
Zushi no Mi, thank you. On top of also being a damn good swordsman with his Zatoichi tribute cane sword that he has hidden in his walking stick.
Yes.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And I mean, it's. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you mentioned you cosplayed Bartolomeo when this arc was out. I cosplayed Fujitora.
Yes.
When we went to Akon that year, it was awesome.
Oh yeah, we had a whole New World Dressrosa group, baby.
We did.
So yes, so Fujitora is essentially switching sides. We also had an emergence of a group that showed up way early on because the whole town or city island was in an uproar over Doflamingo announcing that he was no longer going to be a warlord. When Cypher Pole Zero, which we know CP7 is a secret undercover agency for the world government, Cypher Pole Zero came in and announced, like, don't worry, this is the rumors aren't true. He's not going to relinquish that. We figured that out right before the betrayal on Greenbit, but we didn't really see anything from them up until that point. So at this point, we have Frankie and his group that's going after the Smile Factory, and then we had the underground group. They ended up freeing the Tontada Princess, which is funny because she's infatuated with Leo, but Leo's just kind of like that. Kind of Luffy aspect of like being just ignorant of it and not really noticing.
Ain't got time for that.
Right. But we also find out, her tears, this is a great anime trope that I love that they made a devil fruit ability of it, but her tears heal people.
It's true. Got to the healing tear, which I can't think of right now where that came from, but it's been kind of like a classic where like the tears wake somebody up, or it is completely that princessy fairy tale trope, and it just, of course, it fits perfectly well into One Piece.
Yeah. It's great, and apparently that's another big reason why they've been keeping her locked prisoners, because they would use her tears anytime any of their people would be down. So now you got these groups of people that are all trying to prevent this thing from happening. We found out at one point that the whole Smile Factory wasn't it like made out of sea stone or something of that nature. But it was also guarded by another member of their crew. Sean, you totally mentioned his name earlier, and I'm totally spacing on it right now.
The Senor Pink.
Senor Pink. Yes.
Hard
Senor Pink.
We'd been seeing him for a little bit, but we didn't know what his deal was, and he looked totally bananas because he's wearing a baby bonnet and he has a pacifier. He's wearing a diaper, and we find out that he has this like swim fruit where he can swim through the ground.
Right.
And also kind of funny.
I was going to say he also is rocking some aviators. And while not necessarily modeled after him, he is basically a tribute to Chow Yun-fat from the Hard Boiled Chinese John Woo gun films. Where he's always talking about it's not that easy being hard boiled, and it's such a nice tribute. And I immediately fell in love with him, but I did not have the gumption to rock a diaper to cosplay him like I wanted
to. Hey man, you killed it with that Fujitora though.
I did. I think I did.
So we actually, it's kind of funny because in between like him and Frankie having their manly showdown or whatever, we get his backstory. And it's kind of funny how many tragic backstories we get on this, because he's got a really like interesting backstory too, where like didn't he have like in all the journeys and stuff of the Doflamingo pirates, he ended up finding this woman that he loved and wanted to stay with. And I think they had a kid together, but something happened and the kid died, and she kind of went a little mad, so he started dressing up like this to like help her or something,
to
or
cheer
like
her up.
To cheer her up as well.
It was like, it's super sad. You're not expecting that from a villain. A villain who, like, don't get wrong, he already, like you said, the baby bonnet, he had the basically the children's clothes he wore, but he's also like smooth as hell. 'Cause remember, he always had women fawning over him. And he'd be drinking and grab one of their bikini tops, rip it off with them to wipe his mouth.
It was so ludicrous.
And they loved him because he's hard boiled. And then, of course, you talk about anime tropes. Him and Frankie have that showdown, and it's at first it's kind of like a test, feeling each other out, they're doing the different attacks, and then it just ends up being a contest of who can take the best German suplexes.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Which
They
again
kept
in
flipping each
anime,
other.
yeah, in anime, like you'll have random sporadic, like someone just needs to get hit. They'll just a German suplex is like the go-to, and to have that become like basically end up becoming their contest of who's more hard-boiled was fucking
Yeah.
amazing.
Well, and that was kind of an interesting thing with Frankie, right? Because that's his weak spot is his back.
Right.
So Senior
Yeah.
Pink, I guess, basically figured that out and started exploiting it. So it was basically them going back and forth, like hitting each other, like a knife's edge death match from Yu Yu Hakusho that Sean never got to.
What
But,
show is that? I never heard of that show.
But yeah, and I mean, you know, of course, with all this stuff going on, Frankie ends up being the victor. And they end up using the Smile Factory to try and push back the birdcage while this is happening. So you get to this point, this other character pops up, Pika, which is the third big player here in Doflamingo's crew, and you find out that he can actually absorb himself into any landscape and use it and mold it into his desire, whatever. So he basically, Doflamingo's at the top, and he turned into a giant colossus to keep everyone away. So you get all these little fights that are breaking out between different people in Doflamingo's crew and gladiators and people that have shown up. And then you get Kyrios that finally has his showdown with Diamante. Law ends up, they end up saving him and everything. And while Luffy is distracted, he goes back up to fight Doflamingo, and hits him with this really powerful attack that it essentially affects his like internal organs and stuff like that. Like it just kind of ricochets around.
Right.
It's almost like a kind of defibrillator thing, but like just detrimental to his insides.
Yeah, because a lot of we see a lot of like Law's attacks are almost kind of like scalpel and defibrillator,
Yeah.
like kind of like doctor implements.
Yeah, and
also, are we just gonna gloss over the fact that Pika has one of my favorite bits?
Oh.
and that he's literally this gigantic colossus looking man, except that his voice is super high pitched, and everyone cracks up whenever he talks.
Yeah,
I completely forgot about that.
As soon as you started saying we're gonna gloss over Pika, I was like, oh shit, that was a thing. Yeah, and especially what's even funnier, like you said, he has a super high pitched voice, and like as threatening as he is, everyone just keeps laughing.
because his whole like design, he's an absolute unit, and then he just opens his mouth, and it is the funniest voice that anyone's ever heard.
Yeah, I mean,
it's real great.
Oh yeah, and then it's him and Zoro, right? That end up facing off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, because he's kind of in line with more of like things that Zoro needs to get past to be able to cut through. That way, like he can be a better swordsman. So like he is literally like he's this giant stone colossus that Zoro has to somehow like cut through, kind of like Mr. One or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah, and so. And then it's even better whenever he turns into the giant fucking colossus, because then he still has this voice and people are still like, oh my god, this is like a whole ass thing. During the whole underground portion, though, we actually run into one of Kinemon's, the person that he came here to find, and that's Kanjuro, which kind of has like that very kabuki look to him. And he's got a giant. It's not necessarily a paintbrush, right? I forgot what it's called. It's like an ink pen that they use.
It's a calligraphy pen.
Calligraphy pen, right? Yeah. So, brush, and then we find. Oh, right, like calligraphy brush, right? Yeah. So we find out that he has this ability that whenever he draws things, they essentially come to life. So he is drawing all these ladders and everything, so they can escape the underground and go to top side and everything. Law's facing off against Doflamingo, even though he's landing devastating attack after attack, zipping all over the place with his ability. Doflamingo ends up friggin' severing his arm, just taking him out, and is just wailing on him, because at this point, what can't Doflamingo's abilities do? In terms
also,
of
sorry, I do want to go back to
you're fine.
Calligraphy Samurai. Not only does he draws things that come to life, but he draws poorly.
Yeah.
He's not a good artist, which I've heard some fans speculate is a kind of a Oda kind of doing not detrimental, but the kind of like people accuse as wonderful as One Piece's art is to me. There's criticism on his art style. And I feel like that might have been like just his like him kind of low key mention, like kind of like, okay, yeah, here's an artist who can't draw, but I create, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
You create life.
which like I think we're kind of jumping ahead of the time, but you can't. I remember we lost our shit watching it. But that point where he creates, was it a tiger or like a dragon that was like crawling up?
It was a dragon.
A dragon, and like it was so horrible looking, and like, remember like Robin was like, it's so cute, it's so cute. Go dragon, you can do it. Like she's like whispering to herself. Only that was just one of my favorite Robin moments alone.
yeah. They like even name that thing and everything, but we'll get to that later.
Okay, sorry. I have
you're fine. You're fine. So anyway, we get to this whole thing. Law is pretty fucked up at this point. Doflamingo is about to land that killing blow on him and goes to bring a fucking axe kick, and all of a sudden you see a fucking foot with a sandal go up and stop it, and it is Luffy. Luffy has, and we saw, just with the sheer amount of force that his kicks have, because Doflamingo apparently has some gams among other things. With his ability and stuff, but he like cracked Sanji's leg, which is impressive because Sanji is like the fucking kicking powerhouse. But Luffy just dead stops him, and it's at that point that they really kind of get into their fight. I believe Law kind of gets him out of there. Sutures his arm back and everything, and Luffy's just kind of like going at it, and he ends up revealing a new ability. And it's at that point we get to Gear 4, correct?
Yeah,
and that's Bounce Man.
Yeah, well, I love this one because every time he goes into like a different gear, he does something different to his body. So like, gear second, he pumps blood so fast to his body because he's rubber. Gear third, he blows air into his bones, and then gear 4, he blows air into his muscles this time, and then and then infuses it with hockey.
Right.
Yeah.
So he has almost like a demon looking appearance now, because like his arms are like red black almost, and like it even goes a little bit onto his eyes, and he's like, steam is constantly coming off of him.
Yeah, it's kind of a if you've ever seen the Rajin and Fujin statues that are in front of like temples and stuff, how they have like kind of the cloth floating above them plus those faces and the hair. It's very much a tribute to those, where the steam is wrapping around him though, like their cloth, and it's a very much an exaggerated take on those statues.
Yeah, and it's really cool because he even does like that, that pose.
The palm out.
And the steam around him almost looks like that cloth that they have above them, and he you get a lot of this like ornament hockey that kind of like makes him get darker and everything. But when this happened, the first thing I thought back to, and I think the big thing that inspired this for him, and was one of his big turning points, was whenever we got Nightmare Luffy back on Thriller Bark.
Yeah, it really was.
It's really just him kind of refining that power and the strength that came from that form, and just kind of like stretching his limits to this ability, and he just like him and Doflamingo just get into this whole all out battle, and he's in this form, and he's just kind of like he brings his fists in and into his like actual arm, and like springs him out at such speed and force, and he does the same thing with like his legs, and it allows him to kind of like propel himself in the air, and it's just like this whole like new power that he had unlocked through his years of training, and it's just like, yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like this whole thing for him, like, and it was our first real time, you know, since we got to the New World, with him revealing like this new ability and everything.
Yeah, exactly. Which is like at this point, I think this was like kind of the culmination of his training. Like
Right.
like he obviously broke out stuff in the Fishman Island battle, but I feel like this was that trump card that he was holding that he
Yeah,
got during that
definitely.
2 year, and he knew with Dofi had to break it out on him.
Yeah. And I actually kind of didn't even mention it, but it deserves to be mentioned that on Luffy's way to get to Doflamingo, one of the reasons why he was held up was because Doflamingo was controlling Bellamy to attack Luffy, and at this point, you know, Luffy was like, you know, I don't want to, you know, fight you and all this stuff, because we've kind of seen Bellamy sort of change his colors a little bit. Yes, he was still like trying to serve Doflamingo, and Doflamingo gave him the order to assassinate Luffy while he was in the thing, and he basically told Luffy about the plan, was like, no, I'm going to win this tournament and then fight you one-on-one. And whenever he, you know, denied that, Doflamingo was like, oh, there's another way you can do it. You can just die for me. And Doflamingo was going to essentially control him into fighting Luffy, or have Luffy, like, you know, hit him or whatever. And essentially, you know, after a little arduous struggle, Luffy again just one-shot him. And, you know, it basically like punching some respect into him.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So I also forgot to mention, because it was sort of just a side note to this, but Treble was up at the beginning too with Doflamingo when Law was fighting them, and there was a lot of like Luffy and Law kind of teaming up together fighting.
Right.
Law ends up dispatching Treble, and I forgot about this, but he used his fucking severed arm with his sword to slice Treble up into just tiny pieces. And yes, after Luffy gets up there and they defeat Treble, Luffy throws him down to Robin's group and everything, and that's whenever he goes into his bound man form, and they basically fight it out. After Luffy lands some really good shots in on him, we find out that Doflamingo has what he's calling the awakened devil fruit, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a brand new power that we had never heard of. You know, awakened devil fruit. What does that mean? And we still are kind of like in this air of mystery for it, with him being able to just, you know, control all things with his strings, and just have this giant like puppeteering ring where he can warp the land and everything around him. We also find out that Luffy has limits to this ability, and he essentially kind of, you know, not like whenever he lost him before and he turned small from Gear Third, but he would still be, you know, unable to move because it takes such a toll on him. Not to mention, he's also using Haki while he's using this form,
right?
In order to actually fight. So while he's out of commission, you get this announcer that was like this really big thing in the Coliseum, and he's, you know, you have this thing where the Straw Hat Pirates, if you defeat them, then the birdcage will go away and everything. And this announcer pops on, and they're like, "Oh, you find out that Luffy needs so many minutes, and then he could go back to fight him, and how much damage he had afflicted to Doflamingo." So they kind of get into this mad dash of like saving Luffy and like tossing him back and forth from person to person as like these hordes of like enemies are trying to destroy him and take him out. And at some point, Jesus Burgess steps in, and Sabo starts to fight him and stop him and everything. And so you've got all these people that are essentially just cheering for Luffy this entire time, and you have Zoro that's taking on this mountain of a person, Pika, and it's kind of like this thing of like he can easily dispatch like this giant stone colossus, but the thing about it is if he doesn't take out Pika's actual body himself, because he's the core of this thing,
right,
then he can't defeat him. He'll just basically keep reforming, and he's just flying through like destroying these things. And you kind of like glimpse into some of Zoro's training with Mihawk, and it's you kind of go into that sixth sense or whatever hockey. Which one was that? Observation, yeah. And you kind of realize that Zoro has this, and he's trying to pinpoint where Pika is, and ends up slicing through this giant stone colossus and destroying Pika. And it was kind of interesting how it happened, right? Because you also had Elizabello and all the other Coliseum members that were helping out as well,
right?
That were doing all these massive hits and trying to distract him. And I think it was Orlumbus that was one of the fighters that ended up like throwing Zoro at like maximum speed,
right,
to the point where Pika was, and like knocking him out to end this like madness of this just enormous stone colossus.
Yeah, I mean he was pretty much at like damn near the entire island at this point.
Yeah,
that was pretty crazy.
Yeah, and so at this point, after Luffy had knocked Doflamingo down, and then Luffy had kind of gone into this mode to like just needing to survive, Doflamingo gets up, and he's just trying to get to Luffy to destroy him, and just swatting people away one by one, and everybody's like trying to do this team effort in order to stop this from this birdcage from happening. Like you see Fujitora with his swords, and he's got armament hockey on it, and he's trying to push back. You see a bunch of the gladiators with Bartolomeo, and Bartolomeo's got a shield up, and they're all pushing against the cage. And then Frankie and a bunch of people are using the Smile Factory and pushing it against the cage in order to stop this from happening. And Luffy finally comes to and reactivates Gear Fourth, and him and Doflamingo go into it again, and Doflamingo's manipulating the whole ground and everything around him, and he ends up doing what he does with his fists whenever he's going to do a gigantic attack, and it looks like the Gear Third giant pistol, but instead you can see that it's got hockey on it, and he calls it the Gumu Gumu no King Kong gun.
Oh yeah.
And
which is
as he's bringing it
beast mode,
right
there.
as he's bringing it down, Doflamingo puts up a big shield, like a web looking shield, and he's got like different pieces of string going towards it with hockey and everything, and Luffy just cuts straight through all of it and delivers that finishing blow that we get at the end of every good arc and every good battle, with just the thing ending, and everyone sees that the birdcage finally dissipates and goes down, and it's just this huge relief
Right.
because once again Luffy's come out on top against all odds and taken out this massive superpower in this part of the ocean, who we end up finding out is working for the pirate Emperor Kaido, and that's who he's creating these smile fruits for. So in a sense, he's declaring war on Kaido as well, as with the rest of his crew whenever they fought back against Big Mam's pirates. So we kind of get a lot of wrap up with this. You get Fujitora, who essentially apologizes to King Riku about like what happened with their country and letting it get that far, and that they will help them rebuild and everything. You also kind of get this great scene with Sengoku, where he kind of just thinks back to Corazon and everything, and you know, kind of deems this like, oh yes, it's, you know, this is finally over. Like he's finally been like avenged or whatever.
Right.
You also see like Luffy and everybody is all getting together, and they're going to leave the island, but Fujitora has a whole blockade, and the gladiators and all the people in the town are basically putting themselves in front of him and running around him and shouting and everything. So he can't try to hit or hurt Luffy, because if he does, he'll hurt one of these people. So it pretty much provides Luffy with the means to escape with all these other people. So the first of all, the funny thing is they get away on Bartolomeo's ship, which it's the going Luffy senpai, which is just the most amazing thing ever. Luffy's like the headmast, and then you have the oranges in the back, and then Chopper's hat, and it's just different pieces of the Straw Hat Pirates were put into play in the construction of the ship.
Yeah, like total fanboy. I mean, he is us. He is the representation of how much
100,000,000%. The biggest thing to come from the end of this, though, towards the end of this arc, is as they're all together, all of these, you know, huge people in the new world that are like, you know, rulers of different kingdoms and stuff like this that the Straw Hat Pirates have saved, and like captains of other ships and everything, all kind of get together and decide that they want to initiate the Straw Hat pirate fleet.
Yes.
And Luffy's like, no, I'm okay. And they just basically insist, so he doesn't even get a say in it. And they all decide that this is a thing. So like I said, you know, you got Bartolomeo's crew, you got Cavendish's crew, you got the Hardruden, which is one of the he was a giant in the ring. Him and his giant pirates. You get Orlumbus, who has a fleet of apparently 2,000 ships or something like that. You get the kingdom that Elizabello's from and his fleet. And so you just basically get this really amazing thing where, like, you know, our last fleet that we saw was Whitebeard's, and it was just incredible to see. Right. And now, like, Luffy is like almost at that level where he has this whole like fleet of like all these other pirates and pirate ships basically at his command.
No, yeah, that's a huge step into what we know to becoming a pirate king, really. Even though I don't think Roger necessarily had it, but like it really shows how Luffy's gaining in power, and you know, from just being him, like he earned the respect. He freed this kingdom, which is like this arc in particular. Like, you know, they've rescued nations, you know, Alabasta being one, but there was something about this one that I felt like almost felt bigger in scale, as far as like, you know, what all Doflamingo had been doing, what all he was involved in. It was like made like the freeing of Dressrosa just like super impactful.
And yeah, so we kind of like in the arc on that note. I think in the meantime they shoot over to this alliance that's forming between Kid and Scratchman and Hawkins, and you know, they're all like, you know, trying to deal with Kid is like trying to give a cat a bath, essentially.
Right.
He's just like, you know, fighting it the whole step of the way, but they all know that they can't do anything on their own in the new world. So I think they come to terms, but as this happens, a really loud crash happens outside of where they are. And, you know, they all think that they're under attack, or one of them's betraying the other, and the space is being attacked, and they run outside, and this fucking mountain of a person stands up. And it is the fucking beast monster that is Kaido.
Right.
Our fourth emperor of the New World, or I guess fourth emperor of the New World. And I think it was also during the fight that Burgess let loose that Blackbeard he took over Whitebeard's spot,
right,
as an emperor.
Yep.
But Yeah, so you basically get this whole scene, and it's kind of funny because I think the first person that we kind of see after he falls before they make the reveal is that other person from the worst generation, the person from Skypiea the monk. I can't remember who it was.
Aruj.
Aruj, yeah.
Aruj.
Yeah. He said that the person said something about wanting to die and jumped off of the Sky Island. So essentially, Kaido tried to kill himself by jumping off the Sky Island and landed on these poor three. We kind of like just sort of wrap this whole arc up with. The Straw Hat Pirates have an alliance now. They have this whole group of people that are following them, and Kaido emerges himself, and we see him for the first time, and he is terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, it sets a whole precedent that like here's the everyone has like their these abilities, but like at some point they can be beat. This man literally jumped 10,000 feet and to try and kill himself, and he still can't die.
Yeah. And something else that I didn't get into because I kind of wanted to see, I wanted to run through this arc because there's so many characters and stuff like that. But they have several wrestling references in this whole Coliseum arc.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And honestly, like we'll go ahead and put out like we got. I don't think we have time to jump to the next arc, but let's kind of let's go back and like I mean we can. There's so much to take in Dressrosa.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, there was a couple of contestants. One of which I remember his name was Abdullah, and he had a giant fork. Which is he was an American wrestler, but he really got infamous in Japan, known as Abdullah the Butcher, for doing hardcore matches. And one of his signature moves was to, as we all know, wrestling is a staged performance, but when you got to bleed, you can't really fake that. And one of his moves was to just basically scrape a forehead enough to where you're bleeding for real with a fork. He would have it hidden in his boot or in his belt. So like that was a big one. There was one I want to say they called him Tiger or something in this. He had a kind of a Middle Eastern like a turban kind of look, and he had a curved sword, and that's Tiger Ali Singh from Japan as well. That's another one of their foreign monster wrestlers they would bring in, and he would come to the ring with a sword. Never used that, but that was like just one of his gimmicks. Yeah, those were the two on top of my head I remember were being.
Bobby and Kelly Funk.
Oh, there were Funks. Yes, I forgot about the Funkers. Yeah, of course the Funk family. Terry being the big one, but there was several because it was. Terry and Dory Funk in real wrestling, but those were just kind of the takes on their names, which I think like Oda, he's got to be a wrestling fan. There's been throughout One Piece, been wrestling references throughout.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's like one of the things that it's great. And I don't know if like it's a big thing for maybe the editors and stuff for when Oda's writing stuff, and he's like, hey, I'm thinking an idea of this arc. Do you guys have any thoughts on like character things that I should put in it or something like that? And like he just gets like a list of people to look into and just bases like some of those lesser characters off of like little references for that and stuff.
Oh, for sure. Like we mentioned, like with the admirals and even like I said, Senor Pink. Like even going into like the actors too, and like people can speculate all day. Like he has a lot of inspiration thrown out throughout the series.
Oh yeah.
But like what were some of y'all as far as like the Doflamingo family was a huge group. Like who were like for y'all like who was y'all's like would say your favorite underlings of Doflamingo?
Go ahead, Mike.
I mean, in term, I did like Pika. I enjoyed his whole shtick. I enjoyed the like the high pitched voice, but also being like an absolute unit and giving Zoro something. Kind of a challenge. Like you had to think like kind of like outside the box on how to fight him.
Right.
Sugar I liked because of the whole premise of the whole setup of her power and all that. And then I also loved how like as it went on, like they had to keep trying to find ways to knock her out. And so later on, when they rescue Kanjuro and he's painting the stuff to come to life, and Sugar wakes up and before she can like fully activate her power, they're flinging the small little Usopp faces at her
Oh,
to,
yeah.
that,
Oh,
had,
yeah.
that had the face to freak her out again.
Right.
And it's just like I just love how Oda always loves to throw in so much comedy in what could be a very serious series.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then but unfortunately, I feel like too many of the Doflamingo Pirates were almost a little. There's only almost too many guys. Like we didn't get to really know too many of them. Like
Right.
like Lao G or Gladius or whatever.
Lao
Like,
G, almost. I completely forgot about
Yeah,
the loving tribute to Super Sentai.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
the
I was
G.
gonna mention him, and it's funny. That's not the only hint to Super Sentai in this arc, because whenever we got to the Straw Hats being with the Tontatas and saying that they were going to be like their heroes or their champions or whatever,
Right.
fucking Usopp straight up did like the first Kamen Rider pose.
Oh, did he?
To Guri.
I didn't even
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, like Senior Pink, because he got the tragic backstory, as well as just I don't know. I love the Chow Yun Fat thing from Hard Boiled. Also, like they got. I don't think we really covered them much, but they were actually in Punk Hazard. But Baby Five
Buffalo
and
and Baby
Buffalo,
Five.
like there's something about
yeah.
that team. Because Baby Five makes her limbs into guns. And it's just a maid outfit. And it just falls in love with Awen, who compliments her. She's like, I really dug her. And Buffalo was just so weird. A giant buck-toothed man who had their what was the Doflamingo Pirates logo on his front teeth, and what he could spin. I guess he just had propellers. They weren't hair or anything. But he just had propellers around his head that allowed him to fly. He could fly.
I think it was actually like a windmill fruit or something like that, and he used that to like propel or something ridiculous.
It's so out there, but so fucking Oda.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but honestly, I think I forgot about Lao G, because like you said, there's a ton of fucking people in here. But honestly, I feel like Baby Five and probably Senior Pink were probably my two favorites out of the Doflamingo family.
Yeah, Lao G was great. And Baby Five, just her whole thing and how she ended up like just kind of forming an alliance with Sai and just completely changed which side she was on and everything.
Yeah.
That was pretty great. And then of course, the fight with Senior Pink and Frankie had me really liking Senior Pink.
Oh, I do like I'm sure some other cosplayers who might be listening can appreciate this. Our friend Noelle, she cosplayed Baby Five, and we're planning the Dressrosa cosplay group while the manga is still going. I don't know if the anime hadn't even gotten into like further enough into Punk Hazard, because Noelle, and she wanted to be Baby Five, who is basically in a typical kind of French maid outfit. So she's like, okay, we're looking at the manga, French maid outfits, typically black and white, simple enough. And Noelle, being the talented seamstress that she is, made her outfit, had it done. And then we get to the color, then we actually see Baby Five in the show in full color. And of course, Oda makes her outfit like maroon or like a shade of purple. So our friend Noelle had to remake her entire costume because Oda can't be normal.
Right. Of course.
Yeah. We also in that group. So I was Bartolomeo. You were Fujitora.
Yeah.
We had our friend Larry was Kinemon.
Yep.
And then let's see, who else did we have?
We had David as Sai.
David is Sai.
And Cat as Sugar.
Yeah.
And Noelle as Baby Five. That was like for us. Came in like we all went together. We had that hooked up. Plus, then of course when we were going to Akon in Dallas, and we were there was a ton of other, Punk Hazard and even Dressrosa like cosplays. Like I had a great face off with someone dressed as Sabo Lucy.
Oh,
so he was in the disguise wearing the beard, but he had the pipe, and I had my Fujitora. We had a good face off photos taken.
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was a good time. Another thing that on those little face-offs that they had.
Yeah.
So it was Gladius that faced off with Bartolomeo, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool because Gladius had this very offensive thing with spikes and explosions and stuff like that. So he was kind of like this like weird pufferfish sort of porcupine type thing going on.
Right.
And Bartolomeo ends up finishing him with his Bari Bari punch, which is basically like the Gumu Gumu pistol or whatever. So he does a Bari Bari pistol and puts a little barrier over his fist, little orb barrier, and punches Gladius to finish him off, which I really enjoyed.
Which again, like out of all the new like friendly characters, even though he didn't maybe seem friendly at first, Bartolomeo is definitely a standout. This dude, this dude is a Yakuza delinquent. Like he's got it's a mohawkish thing, but it's almost a pop. He's got he's got the little the Tonto dagger shoved into his pants. He walks very much like you see him like you said, he's taking a piss during the tournament. Did he throw a grenade into the audience because they were talking shit to him?
Yeah, like a bomb or something like that. But I don't think it was like really a bomb.
Oh,
I think he was just trying to fuck with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, being known as the cannibal because he's got like
oh yeah.
And there's a lot of mystery about him, and then and of course the briefcase.
Yeah.
The briefcase that was moving. Which is the only weird part. Otherwise, I just assumed it was all his straw hat collection with him. But it was that weird. I don't know. That may have been a weird animation thing. But like, cause we never got an answer. What was it? What's in the box? We never really got that. But like, and then him to become a fanboy, and then just once he starts actually working with him, how you just the hearts and the stars always popping out of his eyes every time. I think even something simple. I think Robin was kind of like. Even like told me like I think she was weirded out by him, and she just like, get away from me. He goes, "Yes, Robin, yes." He spoke to me, just like super fanboying out, and you gotta love that.
Yeah, freaking out the whole time. And then they Cavendish was the other big pirate that we got introduced to,
right?
And his whole thing was interesting because like I think he was renowned. And he thought it was his own abilities, and then come to find out he's got this alternate personality that's a scary monster that essentially like can move at the speed of sound and slice things up. So that was a really cool thing.
It was neat because like his design is very like a musketeer, very swashbuckler.
He's very the Prince Charming type.
And like you always worry about how pretty he is, or like he didn't like dirty people, like he didn't like Bardo because like you're filthy, get away from me. But then and he's good when he's conscious, but then when he falls asleep, it's just beast mode for him.
Turns into Hakuba. Yeah, it's a thing.
Oh, for sure. And again, like even with a 3-hour show, we wouldn't have time to kind of really go over all of Dressrosa. But from the Tauntauns to the Doflamingo family to like Rebecca and her family, whole thing, and of course the Nutcracker kind of motif with the toy soldier was this like so many nods, so many like you got like Babes in Toyland kind of thing with all the toys going on. Oda pulled a lot for a very like this is probably the first and not the last, as unfortunately you'll be seeing soon if you're ready for us to wrap this up. Dense stories, and I kind of feel like it's because I don't feel like it's a rushing thing. It's just Oda's like, okay, he knows when he wants to end it, and there's still how does one man have this much world in his mind? What I mean? It's fucking crazy. But unless y'all got any last minute things, I think we're going to call it an episode.
I think I'm good. How about you, Mike?
Yeah, I think so.
Good. All right, right on. Well, if y'all enjoyed what you heard, please give us a like, a comment. Let us know what you thought about Dressrosa, since this was literally the Dressrosa episode. What do you think? What were some of your favorite standout new introduced characters, or some of your favorite moments? We'd love to hear about it in the comments. And of course, like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Mike, as always, thank you for sitting in here with us, man. We love talking One Piece with you.
Absolutely. I look forward to these all the time.
Yeah.
All right,
it's such a great time.
Oh, for sure.
The party won't stop.
Because One Piece will never end.
No.
Right. But that's going to do it for today. We'll catch y'all later.
Peace.
Later.